Oh, the more ways I get the ball, the better, baby. I love that. I love that. But I got a lot of great guys to look at. Most recently, probably Christian McCaffrey. He thrived last year in that league. Well, in this offense, just getting, out of the backfield, getting in the flat, catching hitches or whatever the case may be. It's multiple ways to get the running back the ball. I'm not only myself. We got Moda, we got Dare, we got a lot of great third down backs. There are a lot of guys that I can model my game out there, and a lot of guys that I can learn from. So, as a group, collectively, we've been working on that before practice. After practice, we'll walk and talk it. Not so much getting the rocks, but DB always keeps in our mind, just think like we're not we're the last read on a lot of stuff, so we got time. Like get our depth, get in the right spots, and just be precise in what we're doing. From landmarks wise, if we're supposed to be over the ball, make sure we're over the ball. If we're supposed to be 2 yards from the line of scrimmage, make sure we're 2 yards from the line of scrimmage. He just making sure we detail that aspect. We're really looking at, like I said, that's what Christian McCaffrey's first guy to come to mind because that's just his game. That was his game, and it was just really, exemplified coming in Slow's offense. More specifically, his cut-ups coming with the option routes, the angles, the whip routes. So I ain't gonna say too much. I don't want to spill the beans too much, but yeah.
John, listeners and viewers, I don't know about you guys, and I'm pretty sure we can probably agree when we look at what to expect from Damien Pierce in his second season, but I'm expecting a big year from Damien Pierce in year 2. First and foremost, you have to consider that a lot of people have described Bobby Slowi's offensive scheme as very friendly for running backs. And you also have to consider that Damien Pierce is one of the most explosive and arguably the best offensive weapon that the Houston Texans have entering the 2023 campaign. On Monday, we talked about the improvements that he made as a pass protector. And one of my favorite parts about the opportunity that I had to talk to running back coach Danny Berry was the fact that he talked about how when Damien Pierce is in a game, it's going to keep the opposing team's defense on their heel because you don't know if he's going to be in the game to be utilized in the run game or is he going to be in the game to be utilized as a pass protector. Now, with him improving his pass catching abilities, this is definitely going to make Damien Pierce a triple threat option on the field, especially when you consider that he has been studying Christian McCaffrey, who, in my opinion, has always been, even during the time when he was with the Carolina Panthers during those injury-prone years, he has always been one of the best versatile running backs that this league has to offer. And when you look at what Christian McCaffrey has been able to do or what he's been able to do since he came over and joined San Fran, this is a guy who has recorded 464 receiving yards with 52 catches in 6 games. John, listeners and viewers, that is the most that Christian McCaffrey has been utilized in the passing game ever since he caught for over 1,000 yards in 2019, of course, as a member of the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, so when I look at what Damien Pierce becoming a better pass catcher can do for him in this offense, it helps this offense move the chains and pick up first downs. This is something Houston desperately needs. Damien Pierce pass catching stats for his rookie year in 2022. 30 catches for 165 yards, resulting in 7 first downs. Do I think that Damien Pierce can be a Christian McCaffrey type of running back as a pass catcher? Absolutely not, right? Christian McCaffrey caught 52 passes for 464 yards and picked up 26 first downs last season for the 49ers after he was traded from the Carolina Panthers. So I don't foresee him jumping nearly, 300 yards and an additional 16 first downs, an additional 22 catches. I don't see that happening. But I do think when we can count as a win for Damien Pierce is being able to replicate the productivity that Kyle Juszczyk has been able to do with the San Francisco 49ers, specifically in 2021, 30 catches, 296 receiving yards, but also picking up 16 first downs. I think adding that element to his game opens up how Houston can really use him if he becomes more versatile as a running back. In 2021, Kyle Juszczyk, and I hope I'm saying his name right. Forgive me if I'm not. Kyle Juszczyk saw a career high in plays lined up in the slot or lined up as a wideout, right? And so I think if he's able to, we talked about this yesterday, become a much better pass blocker, that helps keep him on the field, right? If he's able to become more of a threat as a pass catcher, then now you have to fear him as a running back, running the ball, right? But if it's on 3rd and 6 and 3rd or 5 or 3rd and short, any of those situations, and if he's on the field as a defender, if he gets better, now as a defensive play caller, now, hey, keep your eyes on Damien Pierce. He may be able to kill us really quick out of the backfield on a whip route. Maybe flaring out or things of that nature, depending on how the defense is lined up against the Houston Texans offensively. So I love the fact that he's going and looking at the clips and the film and studying what made Christian McCaffrey so successful in an offense last year for the San Fran 49ers that we believe Bobby Sloyd will present and bring over for the Houston Texans, simply because he does have to get better in that area. It's kind of like Nico Collins saying, hey, I got to stay healthy. For Damien Pierce, hey, I got to be more of a threat in the passing game. Because if he does that, and if that part of his game becomes useful consistently, then now the creativity shoots through the roof, what you can do offensively in terms of play calling, right? I think lined up in the slot and wide out for Damien Pierce in his rookie year, I think that may have happened for him 25 times. And I don't believe either one of those resulted in any positive yards for Damien Pierce. I can go back, but he didn't get that many opportunities to really be utilized in the passing game simply because the offense stunk. The offensive system wasn't good, but he wasn't a real threat. There was moments on 3rd and short, we would see Rex Burkhead out on the field. That shouldn't be the case moving forward. Devin Singletary, who I love as a backup running back, who I've been on record by saying eventually at some point during some games, during some quarters, during some drives, Devin Singletary may steal, a couple of reps over from DP. But for Pierce to work on being a versatile running back, and he is this team's future running back. He's on a rookie year deal, got 3 years left on that deal. That will do so much for the offense and rookie quarterback CJ Stroud.
Damien Pierce's comments to me really quick just showcases, and John, you just alluded to this, how creative Bobby Sloyd is going to be. Because I agree with you. I don't see Damien Pierce jumping up to 300-400 receiving yards, but I do believe that Bobby Sloyd is going to put not just Damien Pierce, but Devin Singletary and Dario Gumbawale in these positions where they could be utilized as pass catchers coming out of the backfield, especially Devin Singletary, who last year alone during his last year with the Buffalo Bills caught 54 balls for 280 yards and 1 touchdown. And remember, when he first signed here with the Houston Texans, that was one of, if not the biggest attribute that I like most about the signing, was the fact that, okay, you're going to have a young quarterback under center that is going to just give him a reliable pass catcher that he could utilize, especially like we've been talking about throughout this whole entire offseason, how, let's say, mediocre the wide receiving core is as of right now.
Yeah, and again, I do want to put emphasis on, before we move forward, being able to pick up first downs. That's important. If he's able to pick up first downs, catching the ball, then I'm not worried about him running the ball. That's a given. To pick up those first downs, to keep the defense honest, does wonders for what this team can do moving forward offensively. Those were my new Bird Dog shorts. Bird Dogs gives me the confidence because Bird Dogs helps me look good. And if I look good, I feel good. With the stretch khaki shorts, they are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you that sculpted look. Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. Why? Because a lot of the regular shorts are made of stiff and restricting cotton. Bird Dog fixed this issue by inventing a cloud knit fabric that looks just like the khaki but stretches so you get the way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice the movement. Again, listen, guys, look at my legs. Look at my legs. Look at my legs in these Bird Dogs. Amazing. Go to birddogs.com/locked on NFL and enter promo code locked on NFL for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/locked on NFL for a free Yeti style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. I promise.
I mean, to be honest, like, I don't really care about that stuff right now. Just putting it first and foremost, like I said, coming into this, like, I'm just happy that I can play for another year. Whether that's on a 1 year, a 4 year, a 10 year, whatever it is, like, I'm excited that I got an opportunity to take another shot at, making a deep playoff run and ultimately winning a Super Bowl. And I think that's kind of what I'm most focused on. All that other stuff, like, I handle that, I leave that to my agent. I just let him kind of dictate, whatever he says, I kind of go with. So.
Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. That was Dalton Schultz speaking about his future with this team. Cody, I think that when you hear those comments, a couple of things. Like, I hear optimism from Schultz, right? And he is a guy that you look at his last 3 seasons with the Dallas Cowboys, who drafted him back in 2018, 615 yards, 4 TDs. In 2021, he really came on the scene. 78 catches, 808 yards, 8 TDs. And then last season, 57 catches, 577 yards, 5 TDs. A really good tight end. He's a guy that I believe, if you look at the comments made by Bobby Slowick, and when he talked about, trying to replicate some of the good things and what he was able to learn from the Gary Kubiak offense, Owen Daniels pops off my mind. Like, I think of Owen Daniels and how successful he was playing alongside Andre Johnson as his top receiver. No Andre Johnson here in Houston as of right now, though we believe that Nico Collins can fulfill his own prophecy once he becomes one of the greats in Houston Texans history. But Schultz is a guy that I think he is coming from a situation where it was successful, not only for the team, but more so for himself in the last 3 seasons, right? Being able to be a Pro Bowler, being able to put up those numbers, being able to play in a high-octane offense. And I think that when you look at the possibility of retaining not only Dalton Schultz, but the Hassan Ridgeways, the Jimmy Wards, the Devin Singletaries, when you look at the possibility of retaining some of these vets, the very first thing that I think needs to happen when we look at the season, Houston has to be winners. And I'm not necessarily saying they have to go out there and win a bunch of games, right? What I'm saying is, for Dalton Schultz, for example, he has to feel comfortable as he did in Dallas, right? And so Dallas was a team, won the division, 1 year, a couple of years under him, made a playoff push a couple of times. Dak Prescott was his quarterback. But at the end of the day, these guys are all about their numbers in terms of whatever I produce helps me get paid. So he has to, I think for him it's important for this team to be able to make sure he gets the ball, put him in situations where he's playing winning football, but he's also getting his as well. Same for Devin Singletary, who's on a 1-year deal as well. I think Devin Singletary may be more of a stretch simply because, if he goes out there and ball out, how the NFL is Houston going to really prioritize bringing him back when they have Valade, who they're high on, and you may have an opportunity to either sign another running back in free agency or draft one next year who's younger? That's different. Specifically for Dalton Schultz, Cody, I think it's going to be important for him to see his numbers replicated. And I think from that point, then he'll be able to buy in to what Houston has going on. Again, I am the only person that I've heard speak about this team possibly winning the AFC South, and I know that's a stretch. But if you look at what he can bring, touchdowns in the red zone, right? The last 2 years, 13 total touchdowns. Being able to pick up first downs and be the possession tight end that this team desperately needs consistently. So once he gets his numbers, I think that'll help him, because if the numbers are there, that means the quarterback play and the offense is there. So he'll be comfortable like he was in Dallas. And moving forward, you want to see Houston and Dalton Schultz get their deal done, because I don't think they're going to find a tight end as consistently good as Dalton Schultz moving forward. And he's a vet, and he's a good blocker, and he's someone that you want around your younger guys in that offense, and he understands how the offense works and everything that comes with Schultz, man. I would love for Houston to get that deal locked down. But, of course, from a player standpoint, I know he wants to go out there and ball, but he has to be comfortable in terms of, do I want to come back? Am I comfortable in this offense? If the answer is yes, the chances of re-signing him are very high.
Really quick, John, answer this. What player are we talking about really quick?
Oh, well, we were talking about Dalton Schultz.
Okay, with that being said, we're talking about the possibility of him re-signing with the Houston Texans. And we just heard him talk about the expectations that he has for this organization. And not only that, before he started talking about his future with this organization, he talked about how the hiring of D'Amico Ryans, the respect that he has for D'Amico Ryans, is part of the reason why he wanted to come to the Houston Texans, because he also joked how San Fran kicked the Dallas Cowboys out of the playoffs over the last 2 seasons. And he already said that he has faith and trust in D'Amico's defense. I just, that was a win for me. He's already one of my favorite players. Take as many shots as you want to at the Dallas Cowboys. I don't care. But to get back on topic, that just lets you know that this organization is finally back on track to be respectable, and it's an organization that has a promising future, because Dalton is not the only guy that's going to be in this situation. I take a look at a guy like Malik Collins. I think because he's going to be a part of seeing this franchise get back to promise, because he's going to be a part of the change. The same thing can be said for Corey Littleton, a guy that they just signed in free agency. Same thing can be said for Sheldon Rankins. And John, you just alluded to a guy that I think is definitely going to get an extension. And of course, as of right now, that's just me talking. Nobody is.
Yeah, I don't know how I forgot Sheldon Rankins. I'm sorry about that.
But Devin Singletary, like, we are talking about players who are going to be able to produce for the Houston Texans, not just in 2023, but beyond. And that is very telling, because when you go back and you view the last 2 seasons, the Houston Texans was viewed as somewhat of a pit stop. You had players that either wanted to get away from this organization, or players who just signed with this organization because no other team would give them a deal, or no other team wanted to give them an opportunity to showcase what they can do. Even Shaquille Griffin, I talked about on yesterday how he finally made his debut in practice with the Houston Texans. And even though he did look rusty, once again, was called for not 1, but 2 pass interference calls, he still had moments where you said, okay, as soon as he gets back into his repetition, he's going to provide this secondary with something special. A secondary with Jalen Petrie and Darius Stingley at the helms, you already know it's going to be special. So the Houston Texans are going to be a destination where players will like to come play, and they're going to be a destination where it's going to be very realistic for them to keep the value guys that are already on this roster to continue to be a part of this transition that they're going through. And it's finally a transition that is positive, unlike the last couple of years when the transition was negative.
Yeah, and it's important for them for some of these guys that's coming from winning situations, it's important to put those guys to, like, again, just feel comfortable, man. Just feel like, the record may not show it, but for a team that went 3-13-1 last season, for a team that was pretty bad the last 3 years, a combined record of 11
wins.
11 wins.
It should have been 12, but 11.
11 wins.
And one random tie.
For those players coming into this situation, they want to see the improvement, right? Some of these guys, some of these players have played this team. Like Dalton Schultz played him last year, who he spoke highly of Jalen Petrie, and we
Damien
look
Pierce
at
spoke highly of him as well.
spoke highly of Damien Pierce. Who like some of these newcomers have played this franchise. Pearman from the Raiders played for the Raiders last year. He's a guy that, you know, on the other side of the ball, but ultimately they want to make sure that they are establishing a winning culture. Because if Dalton Schultz wanted to, I'm sure he could have went somewhere else this offseason. So he got a deal, 1 year, $6.2 million, I believe. As a matter of fact, let me look at the numbers right here. Yeah, $6 million deal. Nothing too crazy. And in the offseason next year, I'm sure that depending on the type of year he's going to have, he should be able to command somewhere between a 4-year contract worth $16 to $17 million maybe. But you want to retain him by doing winning things. And doesn't always necessarily equals, you know, a dub in the win column. But if you are moving the ball, putting points on the board, and doing things to make these players feel comfortable, then I think that's the first step in retaining some of these guys. Welcome back in, Locked On Texan listeners and viewers. Before we close out today's podcast, just really wanted to highlight the alumni support on Tuesday's OTAs. Andre Johnson, which is the guy that I'm sure everybody would know the most. There's a lot of, he was out there, of course, was what I'm saying, but there was a lot of former Houston Texans players. Andre Johnson was the headline of those guys. My man Jonathan Wells was out there as well, a friend of the show. I
got to get him back on, by the way.
Absolutely, especially during the season when we're talking about C.J. Stroud. You know, he's an Ohio State guy, C.J. Stroud, Ohio State. But I think it's important to just say this wasn't the norm in the past few seasons. If we all remember, Andre Johnson, who never speaks and tweets, Andre Johnson's tweet, there was no support from guys that, you know, former Houston Texan players when everything was going on, even with Deshaun Watson had been moved on from and they had to understand that it was over with. You didn't see a lot of support from former players. Now you see it constantly, consistently. You're seeing these guys around the building supporting this franchise. And I just wanted to say that that is something to highlight in, you know, recent history, memory for this team. It ain't been that many moments to highlight. So I love the fact that former guys are coming around, are in the building, or around these young players, are, you know, it's just adding a different element of the building process.
And it kind of goes back to the conversation you and I just had about the Houston Texans just having a new culture. John, I remember in 2021, entering week 7 or week 8, when the Texans were preparing to take on the Arizona Cardinals. And of course, that was the first time that they played against JJ Watt. And I remember we all had a virtual press conference with JJ. And he was asked several times about, you know, what went into his decision to move on from the Texans. And I remember every time he was asked that, he always talked about how there was things going on with the organization that he just didn't want to be a part of anymore. Now, of course, later on, we started learning out and finding out several different things that was going on. And some of the things we would never talk about here on this show. But to now know that so many alumni, including JJ Watt, who has shown his support for this organization all throughout the offseason, especially after the hiring of Coach DeMeco Ryans, it just lets you know that this franchise is back on track. And in some ways, it's not only back on track, but it has the potential to be better than it's ever been. You know, even when you go back and you take a look at the heyday of the Houston Texans, there were moments whether on the field or off the field that kind of made you say, okay, what's going on? You know, but as of right now, and look, I understand it's still early. A lot could change between now and the start of the season. A lot could change between now and 2-3 years down the line. But there is nothing there that is telling me, telling other reporters, telling former players, current players, or anything like that. Like, the dark cloud that was over there that hung over this franchise over the last couple of years is gone, man. And I know that is something I keep harping on, but you guys just don't understand like how much that weight, how much that burden, how much of the negativity that surrounded this franchise was hurting everybody involved. And shout out to all the alumni who was there. I do want to give a lot of credit to Andre Johnson because he started coming around last year when Lovie Smith got hired. So he was kind of one of, if not the first alumni to kind of start fixing the relationship, because look, the Houston Texans, man, they got a strong alumni base. And these guys love this franchise. And it's just good to see all of these guys support the Houston Texans again, especially following the hiring of some of them, their former teammate, i.e. Andre Johnson and J.J. Watt with DeMeco Ryans.
Thank you guys for checking out today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texans. And as you can see at the bottom, subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as well.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.